Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to talk about the NFL's Week 11 recap, update our ongoing betting competition, talk just a little bit about the Royals' planned move to downtown Kansas City, and then we'll get into the NFL's Week 12 preview with some new picks. Mike, Week 11's in the books. Chiefs had a close win over the Chargers. There were a bunch of really crazy games this last week. Good teams, supposedly good teams, looking terrible. Some really inept games. And some pretty decent performances. What did you find most interesting from Week 11?
Yeah, I think it's one of those weeks where you saw the teams that everybody thought were surprising turned out to be maybe what everybody really thought they were, and that they weren't that good. Like, both New York teams lost, and neither one was terribly competitive, and neither opponent was terribly good either. Although the Patriots are starting to rack up some wins now, but the Giants lost handily to not so good Detroit team. Although maybe we'll call it a surging Detroit Lions team. They won 3 in a row.
That's right.
Now
Now that's actually a streak.
Yeah.
Even by non-NFL standards, right?
Yeah. The Vikings looked just terrible against the Cowboys, who haven't appeared to be really that good any game this season. They've won some games, but they've lost.
Been close and late usually.
Yeah, and their offense hasn't been so good. They don't know, when Prescott has been playing, their offense hasn't been very good, and they've turned the ball over. They don't really know who their running back should be. Their wide receiving core is much depleted from last year even. We also saw the Eagles struggle against
nearly lost
Indianapolis. I guess we could also say, well, we saw the Chiefs struggle in Indianapolis too, and they actually lost. The Eagles didn't, although maybe you'll blame the referees, the officials in the Chiefs game a little bit more than you might the Eagles loss. Wasn't there a controversial face mask penalty in the Eagles Colts game as well, or where I'm
not sure.
Maybe it was a different game I was thinking.
I just know the Eagles scored very late to take the lead.
Yeah.
And they did most of their scoring in the fourth quarter just to get into position to win.
Oh yeah, the Eagles did have a missed face mask penalty. Eagles defensive. There was a sack on Matt Ryan when the Eagles were losing, and the missed personal foul call would have resulted in Indianapolis moving into the red zone. They had to kick a field goal instead, and had they scored a touchdown, then Philadelphia would not have. So they benefited from a missed face mask call, and they, I guess, hurt by a missed face mask call in successive weeks. But
seems to be a rash, though, like missed calls on fairly blatantly obvious things.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
Yeah, so I think that was somewhat interesting. Some of those results were interesting, and I think there were quite a few upsets. I think last week that were not predicted. We mentioned a couple of them, but I think the Falcons beating the Bears was a surprise, especially given the way the Bears have been playing. Although they haven't been winning a lot of games, they've been competitive. The Rams have continued their free fall, and we'll see. And let's hope it continues next week against the Chiefs. But yeah, it seems like we're starting to see the contenders separate themselves a bit from the so-called pretenders. What did you notice this past week?
Well, I thought the 49ers, I think, have moved into like their division lead now. With their kind of pretty solid win over Arizona.
Yeah,
That
I
kind of
mean,
changes the outlook for the playoff predictions, at least anyway, by with that and Seattle's bye week, I guess, right?
yes, Seattle had been really on top of the division from the very outset,
Hmm.
and but they lost at San Francisco week 2, and that was really when San Francisco turned around because that's when Garoppolo became quarterback, and they've been doing fairly well. We've lost a few games here and there, but now they had some injuries and things like that. And now they're starting to get healthier, and
The
McCaffrey
McCaffrey
and
acquisition has a lot to do
Elijah
with it
Mitchell
too.
both have been solid in the backfield. So, um, yeah, I think it seems to be their division to lose now. I think that although I guess they will have to play at Seattle later in the year,
Mm.
so I guess Seattle still could um, have something to
Yeah,
say. But
yeah. When is that coming up soon, or is that late?
it is
4 weeks apparently.
yeah it's December 15th
Yeah.
at Seattle. It looks like it'll be a Thursday night game.
Okay.
So who
Their
knows with
schedule doesn't look super tough. Got a couple of games.
Seattle.
49ers.
The 49ers will play the Dolphins and the Buccaneers,
They have the 3 weeks in a row. That looks like they could be pretty tough, but then
and maybe even the Commanders. This
could
might be a tough game depending on how they're doing. But then
the
and
Commanders are actually in the playoff spot right now. Oh no, they're just outside.
yeah,
They're right behind Seattle. So yeah, not quite.
so that
They're
could
getting
be a
close.
so they could be trying to chase a playoff spot.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're 6-5. They're only half game out. Surprisingly, Atlanta is only is 5-6. They're right behind the Commanders. And Detroit is now 10th place in the NFC, ahead of Green Bay, although they've only played 10 games. They're 4-6 to Green Bay's 4-7.
But now that Minnesota has shown some weakness, is Green Bay back in the picture to win the division?
I don't think so, although technically they're only 4.5 games out right now. They still would need to beat the Vikings at
Hmm.
home. And basically, I would say win out probably.
They more or less need to win out. But I think if they do, could they win out? Well, maybe that's the question.
Could they win out? Well, they
Yes,
look
I think
bad
if you look
against
at their schedule,
well,
it's possible.
they
They need to
have to
win this
beat
next game.
they have to beat the Eagles.
Yeah.
They're at Philadelphia, and then in 3 weeks after that, they're at Miami.
Hmm.
So those two games, plus the Vikings, they would have to win. Plus at Chicago, home against the Rams, home against the Lions in the last week of the season. So I guess you could say, well, maybe that Lions game would be the um, game to decide the playoffs, depending on how well the Lions do. They've won 3 in a row, so maybe they're going to have you winners of 5 or 6 in a row, 8 in a row by that point. Who knows? I don't see it. I think Minnesota will. I don't think Minnesota's very good, but I think they're still going to win that division. All they have to do is win two
A
more
couple
games.
here?
2 more games, really.
Yeah.
Uh, 3 more. Well, although their schedule is not the easiest. They played the Patriots on Thanksgiving, home against the Jets, who are technically still a playoff-ish team. I think the Jets have moved out of playoff position. I think Philadelphia. Cincinnati has taken the spot in the AFC away from the Jets.
That's correct.
And they play Lions, Colts, who are both somewhat frisky. The Giants, who are again maybe fraudulent, just like the Jets are fraudulent,
But currently in a playoff spot.
currently in a playoff position. At Green Bay, at Chicago. So I guess it's possible that you see a swoon from the Vikings. I don't I think they built up enough cushion that it was not going to happen. I think they'll at least go 2-5 and finish 10-7. I think if they finish 10-7, they don't have to worry about the Packers. I don't think
that could be the record that the Packers have though if they win.
if they win out, yeah.
In which case, I don't know where the tiebreaker falls because they would have split their
Yeah.
games.
We can dig deeper into that. Let's see.
Yeah, because the Packers lost to the Vikings in week 1, so they would be 1-1 head to head.
1-1, yeah.
So
right,
it doesn't matter right now anyway. So
right now the Vikings are 3-0 in the division. The worst they could be in the division would be 3-3. And the Packers are 1-2 in the division. So I guess they could finish 4-2 in the division and beat Minnesota. So if they both finish 10-7 and Minnesota lost all of its division games remaining and Green Bay won all of its division games remaining, Green Bay could have the tiebreaker.
There's the scenario.
That's the scenario. And I think that's really the only. Although maybe you'd say, well, if they finish 10-7, they would make a playoff spot regardless whether they won the division or not.
True. Yeah.
It would depend on what the other teams did, but
sure.
I think it's. So I would say we could say though, if the Packers finish 10-7 and the Vikings finish 10-7, I don't know if either of them get knocked out. Maybe the Vikings. Because the Packers would have the Packers would win the tiebreaker, I think. Because they would, if they won out, they would have to be 4-2. And the best that Minnesota could be, they'd win. If I guess they could also be 4-2 in the division if they happen to win only their division games and lost all the other games.
Yeah,
that would be interesting. And then it'd have to go down to conference record and stuff like that. And, right now, the Vikings have lost both of their games in conference.
Yeah, they're 6-2 in conference games.
And so if they won their division games, they would have lost 1, 2. They would have only lost 2 more conference games because they play the Jets, the Colts, and the Patriots. So 3 of their 7 games remaining are
conference
are
non-conference.
Are on non-conference. So they have a lot of non-conference games left. They only have 4 more conference games. And the Packers have.
Well, we know they have 3 division games left.
Packers have 3 division games left. They have one. They only have 1 non-conference game.
Conference.
Only 1 non-conference game.
1 non-conference, yeah. So they would have more conference games than Minnesota has.
I think a lot of the.
Oh no, that makes it even, yeah.
I'd have to look more closely. It's one of those things where I don't think it's going to happen, but I guess it is in the realm of possibility. And is this where you say, well, we can't play Jordan Love yet because we still won?
They're still alive, so there's no reason to abandon all hope at this point. Maybe.
Yeah, I think if the Dallas game had turned out differently, then maybe you'd say it's over. Though still, I guess Green Bay would have a tiebreaker against Dallas if they finished with the same record because they beat Dallas. And they've also beaten Chicago, which doesn't really matter for tiebreakers. They beat the Buccaneers as well, but the Buccaneers, I think the only way they're going to get in is by winning the division.
Win the division, yeah.
So it's what, yeah. I guess I'm gonna check out 538 and see what the playoff odds for the Packers is. Right, 6% chance they say. which is higher than I would have guessed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we figured out a route without too much
Yeah,
work. There
winning
are
out
plenty of
basically.
games left, so it's not.
Yeah, winning out. I guess that does it for them.
Yeah,
The Vikings, however, they have is a 99% chance of making the playoffs.
that makes sense. I mean, they only need to go like 2-5, like you said. That should give them plenty of wins to get into the playoff picture, at least as a wild card team, anyway.
Mm-hmm. And right now they have the Chiefs. 538 has the Chiefs greater than 99% of making the playoffs, greater than 99% of winning the division. First round bye, 58% right now.
Wow,
23% Super Bowl.
wow. Well, they
Yeah.
are in the driver's seat for the division. What stood out to you about the Chiefs win?
Well, I think the fact that the Chiefs overcame again, kind of overcame some blunders that maybe could have gotten them into a bigger hole at the end of the first half. The Pacheco kickoff return that ended up being at the 6-yard line rather than the 40-yard line, and the Chiefs went 3 and out. And then that included a drive that would have ended. However, Herbert was hit out of bounds by Nick Bolton to give them another 15 yards, which could have led to a touchdown drive. And then also the Chargers were going to get the ball first in the second half. So that could have been basically 3 touchdowns in a row that the Chargers could have scored, and it would have really put the Chiefs behind the 8 ball. I know you thought that Bolton hit was not really worthy of a penalty, given that it was just really sort of a nudge, but
Yeah,
it was on the sideline. It was out of bounds and in front of the Chargers sideline and on Herbert. So it was maybe hard to see that not get called the way it happened. But what do you think?
well, I mean, Mahomes has that happen to him basically weekly, and they rarely throw the flag on that. So I don't like that they called it, but I'm biased towards the Chiefs, obviously. But I don't think he really. I mean, it was his first step out of bounds when he was pushed. So I think by rule, I don't think they're supposed to throw the flag on that. But you also should push them when they're on their way out anyway, in theory, to just to make sure that the officials don't throw that flag. So
Yeah, I think
you can justify, brushing up against them, but I mean, he did go flying, so they're probably going to throw the flag. I would like to see them call it that way every single time they do it. That happens against everybody, with all of any
yeah,
player, just in that scenario.
yeah, I think really it was, yeah, that was going to get called, and it seemed like it wasn't the wrong call, but you've seen the wrong call get made. It seems
Yeah.
like it happens a lot against the Chiefs the way Mahomes he doesn't tend to get the benefit of the roughing calls in the way that some other quarterbacks do, which is a little surprising, I think. But and I'm not quite sure why. But
He had one picked up last week, the week before,
mhm.
I guess, week 10.
And there was a face mask that could have been called on him this when it wasn't quite a grab, but it was like a scrape across the face mask.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I guess I'm surprised. I'm happy that the Chiefs overcame that. They also had, an untimely fumble by McKinnon that could have, when they were going to maybe seal the deal, they could have really salted the game away. But they almost gave the game away. And also just playing without any of their top wide receiving options. Probably you might say the top 3 wide receivers, at least by the second quarter, were out of the game. Smith-Schuster didn't play, neither did Hardman, and then Kadarius Toney was injured. So it was just Mahomes. It was the Mahomes and Kelsey show towards the end. Kelsey didn't have a great first half. He dropped a couple of passes, and but it seems like usually by the end of the game that they're on the same page.
They had a
That
couple
was
players
an impressive
step up too. I thought that, yeah, but Fortson had that great catch. I don't even know how he saw the ball, let alone got a hold of it,
Yeah,
but
it was just a perfect throw right into him basically, and he happened to have his hands out and ready for it. Yeah, that was one of Mahomes' best throws of this season, I think. Yeah, but yeah, I think the Chargers always give the Chiefs their best shot. They were starting to become healthier. Mike Williams got hurt kind of again in the middle of the game. I think maybe they rushed him back. He made a really great catch, but then I guess it hurt his ankle while he landed. So
trying to keep
yeah,
keeping his feet in bounds. It looked like
yeah,
the
maybe he
same
had to
ankle that was injured may have been aggravated. Yeah.
maybe he had to contort his feet in an uncomfortable way that um, resulted in the first. Like if he had maybe if he hadn't tried to get that first down, that he would have been fine. So yeah, the Chiefs were a little bit, I think, fortunate, but they also, when the Chargers play the Chiefs, they tend to get the best game. Chargers, and it's a division game,
And the
tough to
Chiefs
win on
had
the road.
really good run game finally too. That's the first time in quite a while they'd had a 100-yard rusher apparently since, was it
Since
early last season?
week 4 of last season, I think. Yeah,
It's surprising.
yeah. So I guess Clyde Edwards-Helaire got hurt. If you think that was a detriment or a positive, maybe that gave Pacheco the ball more.
He didn't play hardly at all last week, so it wasn't surprising that they didn't seem to need him in the game, I guess, as much on this one, or
Yeah,
they weren't relying on him at least for a lot of playmaking ability.
yeah.
So
He had one good carry. He had 2 carries for 9 yards. I think one of those was like a 7 or 8 yard run, and the other
yeah,
one was. But that was I guess you might be seeing Ronald Jones next week.
it'd be surprising if they don't activate him.
Yeah, although they do have Wayne Gallman on the practice squad, the former Giants running back. So who knows? But I think they got to activate Jones.
Mhm.
If not, they would have released him already.
Right.
So
But no
yeah,
one
the
else
Chiefs.
has tried to claim him off of the.
Well, he's on the active roster, so no one can make a claim. He'd have to be traded since he's on the active roster. He's just been a healthy scratch.
Oh, okay. That's okay. That's how it is. That's right. Got it.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a little surprising too. But I think the Chiefs defense came up big in the right spots. They're getting much more of a pass rush lately. It seems like. So it seems like they're on their way up in a lot of ways. Although the game was very close, and one of those things where had the ball bounced a little differently on Herbert's last pass, they still could have maybe gotten into field goal range. You don't know. So it's one of those things where it's good the Chiefs win and they have Mahomes, but it seems like maybe they rely too much on Mahomes to bail them out in big situations. Like a lot of they need a lot of third down and long conversions every game, and Mahomes is pretty good at getting those, but they put themselves into that position by I think they do a lot of the sequencing of plays. I sometimes we've talked about this before, where they like to run on both second and long and second and short, which I think in general are not good running downs, and they do it anyway a lot, and it doesn't. Sometimes it works out, but it seems like more often than not, if it's second and long, it's also going to be third and long because they run it and they only get a yard or two, and then they have to say, "Oh, it's 3rd and 8. Let's make Mahomes do something on 3rd and 8," and 75% of the time he does, and it's fine. But it's tough to just think, okay, we can be 3rd and 8 every time. Just make Mahomes do something. If it's 2nd and 8, if it's 2nd and 10, at least you have 2 chances for Mahomes to do something, and I think those are better odds to me than giving him, making him, you're basically tying one arm behind his back, basically, because there's only that option. So,
Well, they could always do some of those other, like, not just a traditional like inside handoff kind of play. They could do, at least some kind of motion play, like they do
screen
those once in a
pass,
while,
something.
screen passes, and just
Yeah,
anything that's like just not a traditional like handoff up the middle.
yeah,
Yeah, it'd be nice to see that more on those particular downs.
Definitely.
The defense is so much improved though this season that it just seems like they haven't gotten a lot of forced turnovers so far this year. And I think some of that's
No,
random. I think
some
it seems like that kind of thing will come. It just hasn't yet.
some of that's random. I think part of that also is because the secondary is so young; they don't make a lot of interceptions,
Hmm.
and that's where you get. I think it seems like turnovers are probably half fumbles, half interceptions. They haven't had very many interceptions at all.
Yeah.
They forced a number of fumbles, but um, yeah, it's been mostly. Yeah, I think the pass defense hasn't been very good because of the youth of the secondary, and I don't think the safety play has been outstanding, especially if it's not Thornhill or Reed back there. If they get Cook, rookie is not. I think he's not quite as good at safety as some of the other corners are. Rookies are playing as corner so far. So it's yeah. The defense though, like the linebacking is much better. The defensive
Hmm.
line looks much better this year. So I think they're on their way up.
And then like the last several years, even if they started out poorly, they got better as the season went on. And at least they were passable by the end of the season. And this year they started out pretty close to where they were at the end of the previous season. It,
Yeah,
they'd always seem like the defense would come up, they give up a ton of yards in previous years, but they'd somehow get a turnover when it mattered. That was kind of how they
yeah.
lived. And this
And
year they
this year that
haven't gotten those turnovers for the most part, but because they're still, I think, -3 on the season, even, which is a little surprising to be 8-2 and negative in the turnover
yeah, definitely. Um,
margin. That doesn't seem to happen very often.
no.
There's usually
The
a pretty strong correlation
Yeah,
between
I think that's why it seems like the Eagles
plus
have done so
minus.
well this year because they are winning the turnover battle by so many, um, and that they aren't. But like if you look at the Chiefs in yards per game, they're very much middle of the pack. I think they're 18th in yards per game, 349 yards a game allowed. Um, the 49ers are number one with 283. The Eagles are number two with 300, and then the Broncos. So they're averaging only about 70 more yards per game than um, San Francisco, but the Chiefs went all over San Francisco and didn't have any problem against. They seem like they haven't had any problem with tough defenses, other
Mm-hmm.
than Tennessee, which in terms of yardage is almost identical with um, the Chiefs. The Chiefs have allowed 2 more yards across 10 games than the Titans have, and we think of the Titans as having a very good defense.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because I think the Chiefs allow a lot of passing yards.
They give up a big play here. Well, and other teams are passing most of the time because they're playing from behind in some of those games.
Yeah, the
Where they're
Chiefs
giving
are
up
number.
big passing yardage, it's because the Chiefs were ahead and the
Yeah,
other teams
the
gave
Chiefs
up.
are
Like
number
like
5.
Tampa only ran the ball like 6 times in the whole game against the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the Chiefs are number 5 in rushing yards per game allowed, and so they are. And in passing yards per game, they are 25th in passing, which isn't as bad as I thought maybe they'd be.
That's really not that bad. I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
And I
Given,
mean probably the most important stat is points allowed per game. They're
yeah,
like the lower portion of the middle third.
yeah,
That's not awful.
they're 21st in points allowed. We're tied for 21st with um, Carolina.
But yeah, tied with Carolina. That seems surprising, doesn't it?
Hmm.
They're basically the same team, right?
Yeah, but the teams that are like the biggest in scoring defense, the Chiefs, like Dallas is 16.7. Chiefs haven't played them. New England and Denver all about 17. And then you have the 49ers, the Bills, and the Buccaneers, which the Chiefs have all played. They
Mhm.
scored 44 against San Francisco. They scored 41 against Tampa. They only scored 20 against Buffalo, but they, you know, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. The level of defense that the Chiefs play in their
Mhm.
offensive output, they almost tend to just play down to the level of whatever the competition is. So um,
Yeah.
play down or play up to the level of the competition.
Yeah. Well, how did we do in our bets this week?
Well, we neither of us were shut out, which is maybe what we have to. It says something positive. You did a little better than I did. I was 1-2. My lone win was an over under play. I did the uh, Browns Bills game that was, I think, over under 43.
Mhm.
And I was saved somewhat because the game ended up being not in Buffalo, where there were in some places 6, 7 actually feet of snow,
Right.
and was moved instead into Detroit, into Ford Field. Um, and that game ended up being 31-23 Buffalo. So it ended up being 54. So a decent over, but it was somewhat close towards the end.
Mhm.
And luckily, Cleveland was kind of scrappy enough to keep it close enough to force Buffalo to continue scoring and for Cleveland to keep scoring. So that was my lone win, a 8-point victory from the Bills against the Browns, 31-23. But it was over by um, 11 points.
Yes.
So I was happy about that. How?
Yes.
What was your first bet?
My first bet was a loss for me. I had the Giants -3 against Detroit, and the Giants laid a big egg in their game, not playing well at all, and even had to score late to get within 2 touchdowns. So they did not cover that.
Yeah,
That
this is I remember we had been talking a little bit about the Giants being a kind of at first dark horse playoff candidate, actually becoming a strong playoff candidate. Do we think this is really how good the Giants are? They just aren't that good, and they've had a benefit of playing some weaker teams and winning a few close games here and there, or is this just a bad game?
Well, they still had a pretty good quarterback performance from Daniel Jones. Looked like he had 340 yards passing. But I'm
Yeah,
not sure what happened with their run game because yeah, Saquon Barkley had 22 yards on 15 carries, and that's um,
yeah. I guess they
not
abandoned.
typically his performance anyway.
Yeah, I guess they
That
abandoned the run somewhat because they were so far behind.
mm,
But
so I mean, most of
uh,
those runs are probably early, but that's not what he
yeah,
normally does. Yeah.
Jones did throw 2 interceptions,
Mm,
but he had 2 touchdowns, one rushing, one passing.
mm,
Yeah, I don't know exactly what um, happened there. I think New York does not have. They don't have an off other than Barkley. They don't really have any offensive playmakers. They traded probably their best one away to the Chiefs because I think they although Wandale Robinson had a good game, but I think he got injured that game too. So I don't. I think the Giants and the Jets. We'll talk about the Jets in a second too because you bet the Jets game.
mm,
I think they're both pretty similar. They both have decent to above average defenses,
mm.
probably below average offenses with below average quarterbacks. And I think Daniel Jones has proven right now at least to be a better quarterback than Zach Wilson has. And if the game happens to be close, if the defense plays well, the offense can muster enough points. But if it's a game where the offense has to score, I think the Jets and the Giants both are in trouble.
That seems like a fair assessment.
Yeah, because the Lions scored 31 points, and that's about average for them. They and the Chiefs are about the highest scoring offenses
Hmm.
here, and the Lions this year have scored 31. They've lost to the Eagles 38-35. They lost to the Seahawks 48-45. So when they score 31, they're not necessarily guaranteed a
Their
victory.
record's not that great. Win scoring big.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
pretty odd.
yeah, their offense seems to be clicking again after a couple of bad weeks in a row.
Hmm.
But
I mean, it didn't look like they had a big performance from anybody. Goff still only had 165 yards and no touchdowns,
yeah, Jamal Williams had 3 rushing touchdowns.
but he only had 64 yards. Justin Jackson had 66. I guess so combined they did have 160 rushing yards, but that doesn't really
Yeah,
seem like that's enough yards to get 31 points.
yeah, there were 3, and they had 3 turnovers, and then
Well,
the
one of
Giants,
the touchdowns is on a short field.
yeah, the Giants turned the ball over 3 times. The Lions returned the ball over 0 times. So maybe it's just a classic, turnovers win ball games kind of game.
Oh yeah, the fumble that ended up becoming a touchdown. It was only a short field there too.
Yeah, the Giants had
33-yard field. And then after the touchdown, it was only an 18-yard field. So 2 of the touchdowns came on
yeah,
very, very short.
the Giants had more total yards, 413 to 325. So it was a game where the Giants offense did fairly well, but they turned the ball over, I guess. So
In their
maybe
own
that,
side.
maybe that, I think you could say that loss was not as bad as the other New York team's loss, which you bet on, and you're happy on the winning side of that game. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was actually our game here in the Kansas City area in the early afternoon. So that game was the only televised game.
I saw the Bills
And
Browns TV here.
yeah, you had a better choice because the Patriots Jets game was just atrocious. Like nobody could do anything like through the entirety of the game until the last 30 seconds or so. And yeah, I had the Patriots -3, and it was looking like a push was fairly likely until that punt return touchdown inside the
Yeah,
last minute.
a push at best, probably, because it looks like the game
Push
was
for
going to
loss,
overtime, and no team can score a touchdown. It was going to be probably a 6-3 game,
most likely.
and maybe it actually should have been a 6-3 game given the block in the back
There,
penalty that
there was
happened.
a fairly obvious blocking back penalty that was ignored. That
But it was,
I saw it live and is like
yeah.
I was waiting
But
for the flag to come out and wasn't there. So
I guess it was
I'm
the
not.
returner was already ahead of everybody, and
Doesn't seem like that always matters, but
yeah, it seemed very dumb. I don't know why they got pushed.
there was no
Um,
reason to make the
he wasn't
contact.
going to catch. He wasn't going to catch the returner, and
Mm-mm.
even if he did, why, let him catch it from behind? It was a stupid move by the
But,
Patriots,
but they didn't throw the flag, so it ended up not mattring.
and
Uh,
it led you to an easy or a difficult $100.
well, difficult to watch, but nice
They should have
win.
paid anybody who watched that game probably $100.
I think that's the
Zach
right
Wilson,
decision there.
defiant as ever in defeat, saying that he did not think he let the Jets defense down by averaging less than 3 inches per play in the second half.
So they had was it a total of 2 yards?
They had 2 yards on 27 plays or something like that.
That is not pretty.
Yeah, I think they only had
And
103 yards
they
of
didn't
offense the entire game, right?
they didn't go over the 100-yard mark until the 59th minute of play, and then they went backwards by like 2 yards after they crossed the 100-yard mark, and then punted and then gave up the return touchdown. So
Yeah,
I'm fairly certain that that this will be the defining moment of our betting competition for the whole year. If we finish within one game, that punt return is going to be
it could be.
the difference maker, and I will make sure that is that we remember that when it comes up later.
Yeah, the Jets had the 103 yards total offense. The Patriots had 297. Um, did the Patriots did miss they missed they missed 2 field goals as well. So the Patriots should have, I guess the idea would be they'd beat ahead 9-3. Um,
But
they missed
here are the possessions of the second half, though. I'll just read off the result of each possession for the second half. Okay.
okay.
Punt, missed field goal, punt, 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 turnover on downs, punt, 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 punt return touchdown. Yeah, end of game.
Yeah.
That's not something anyone should be forced to watch.
No. Now the missed field goals um, weren't terrible. It was a 44-yarder and a 43-yarder that were missed. So they weren't like 50+ yard field goals that were missed. You'd think one of those would have gone in for Nick Folk, who's a pretty good kicker.
And nothing desperation, end of half, end of game scenario either. It was
yeah,
you know,
and it wasn't like a windy, snowy
early
game
third.
where you could say, well, nobody could just move. It was just one of those things. But yeah, that was just bad.
Just terrible, yeah.
Offensive game.
Almost all of those drives in the second half were little to no yardage. Most of them were 3 and outs. Most of the punts were 3 and outs. So not a pretty game. But fortunate to win the bet. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
How was your second game?
Well, I had a much more entertaining game that I ended up losing on. I had picked Pittsburgh to cover against the Bengals. I didn't know if they'd win. But they had 4.5 points. I thought they could keep the game within a field goal. And for much of the game, they did. They played pretty well. They got TJ Watt back, but it turned out that the Bengals offense was a little bit too much, and the Bengals ended up pulling away and winning by a touchdown, 37-30. So at least it was an entertaining game, but the Bengals covered by 2.5 points. So that was a miss for me. That was at least the entertaining miss for me. Were there anything about the Bengals Steelers that struck you?
I think the main thing was that it was like at the end of the third quarter, it was still in your favor, and it was just the fourth quarter. It was really the last 5 minutes of the game even is where it officially turned.
Yeah, it was. So that was just one of those things where I had maybe thought that Burrow was not going to be as productive without Jamar Chase, and it turned out that he threw a couple of picks, but he still got a lot of yards passing, 4 touchdown passes. So it ended up being a game where they were still productive on offense, maybe a little bit more than I thought they would be. So, and that was a game where you never know about division games. They're always close. They're always tough. And Pittsburgh actually got kind of stole one from Cincinnati in week 1, where I think Burrow had 5 interceptions and a fumble, and it was just
sacked a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, and their missed field goals all on both sides. They ended up going to overtime, and so that was just one of those games where I think my instincts were right, but it just happened to be a little. That's why they make the lines where they do. It can fall on either side. My third bet, however, was one of the more atrocious bets. That was because I bet the Dallas Minnesota game. I thought, Dallas is favored at Minnesota. Minnesota's been pretty good this year. They beat a tough Buffalo team. Dallas traveled to Green Bay, lost a tough game there, didn't play particularly well. So I thought, seems like Minnesota's being undervalued here. They should be able to win. But no, they got blown out 40-3. That was just a trouncing on both sides of the ball. And I missed that one by 38 points. I think when we made the bets, it had been, I think, Dallas by 1. It ended up being like Dallas by 2.5 or so at kickoff. So it seemed like the sharp money knew that Dallas was going to win, and that was
and Dallas had just come off of a not very good performance the week before, so they weren't necessarily looking like they were trending in the right direction, right?
Yeah,
And Minnesota had just won a big game against Philly, giving Philly their first loss.
No, it was Minnesota beat Buffalo.
No, beat Buffalo. That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, in Buffalo, it's a strange game, but they kept it close against the Bills, who I think are a better team than Dallas. And
Mm.
it was, yeah, I didn't see. I wouldn't have been surprised had they lost, but I thought that at least it was better than a coin flip that they would win. So I made that bet, and that turned out to be, yeah, a 38 point. I was off by 38 points on that one. So I could have, even if I had bet um, Minnesota plus 36, I still would have lost.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins though only 105 yards, still more yards than Zach Wilson at quarterback
Yes.
though. Do you think he's thinking about that himself, or is he not happy with any of it?
I don't think he may have looked through I think Kirk Cousins may have looked through the stats and said, "Oh, I'm not the lowest in terms of passing," but I think if only Zach Wilson is worse than you, I still think it's probably um, not something that really gave a lot of comfort to Cousins. But
Yeah,
maybe this shows that Minnesota really is not the contender that it seems like maybe its record indicated. Maybe they're just more of a middle of the pack team that got lucky. You know, and maybe this is Dallas turning things around, but I still don't think Dallas is very good. I think the NFC is it's going to run through Philadelphia, but I think San Francisco is going to be the best team at the end of the season,
mm-hmm.
even with Garoppolo at quarterback.
Well, do you think that means that because the Cowboys just beat Minnesota so badly, and Minnesota had just beaten the Bills by field goal, does that mean that the Cowboys are actually 40 points better than the Bills if they face each other right now?
Sadly, I don't think the transitive property usually works in the NFL. I I think if the Bills and Cowboys played on a neutral field, the Bills would be favored
Mm.
over the Cowboys, and I think rightfully so. I think they're a better team. Maybe their
Yeah,
defense is not quite as good, but I think their quarterbacking and offense is much better than the Cowboys.
what do you think the spread would be right now if they were to be facing each other on a neutral field?
Buffalo by 4, maybe.
So then if it was in Dallas, Buffalo would just be favored by like 1, basically.
1, I think so. I would bet Buffalo especially if Dallas were favored at home against Buffalo. I would bet Buffalo. I think Buffalo is the second best team in the NFL after the Chiefs, and I think they've proven they can beat the Chiefs. So so yeah. That's what I would say. As the AFC might have the top 4 or 5 teams. I think Baltimore's up there. I think on a good day, Cincinnati's up there. I think maybe even Tennessee is up there. Miami might be up there. So I don't see I really, yeah, I don't see, maybe Philadelphia and San Francisco are as good as some of those top teams, but I don't their records would not be nearly as good if they were playing in the AFC.
But really, the breaking news from this conversation is that the transitive property doesn't apply in the NFL. That's what
Well, we saw earlier this year when the Chiefs played Buffalo. I mean, the Chiefs played San Francisco. They blew out the 49ers.
Mm.
And that was so I think maybe the 49ers should be a little bit better right now, but I think the Chiefs also would be better too. So it's I think Philadelphia is only a little bit better than Minnesota. And they were, they almost lost to Indianapolis, although I guess the Chiefs did lose to Indianapolis. But what was your
Yeah.
what was your third bet? How did you end up?
My third bet was actually that was the Thursday night game, wasn't it? Yeah. Was I had Tennessee +3 at Green Bay, and yeah, Tennessee won fairly handily. By 2017 was the final, so
Hmm.
covered that plus the 3 point.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was
3 point
surprised that
fantasy
Tennessee was an
was
underdog. I would have.
was the underdog, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Tennessee should. Yeah, Tennessee is a lot better than Green Bay. It's one of those. Yeah, I'm taking that to account. Tennessee into account. I'm betting on Tennessee again this upcoming week. We'll talk about that in a second. But is
Yeah.
there anything else? Is there anything else from week 11 that we want to
I
discuss?
think that might be it. Do you have anything else?
I don't.
Okay. Well, should we shift gears then?
Yeah.
Talk just really, yeah, really right after we stopped recording last week's episode of the Warning Track Power Hour, the John Sherman announced that the in a letter from John Sherman's office that they're signaling that the Royals are planning on moving downtown with a $2 billion planned area around the stadium and like a market area around it, I believe too. I think I think we talked about it, we thought that it was likely coming. Is it surprising at all to you then that they made the announcement?
Not surprising. It's maybe, I guess the timing maybe is a little surprising, but I think it seemed like that's what Sherman has wanted, and the Royals,
Mm.
in a lot of ways, have really wanted that for a while. Although
Mm.
I feel kind of bad because I think Kauffman Stadium is one of the great stadiums. I like being able to go out there and park and stuff like that. But it's not really it. It's a bit of an outlier, I guess, as far as major league stadiums. Most of them are played closer into downtown.
Mm.
Kansas downtown is um, much more thriving than it has been in the last couple of decades. So having a stadium down there, I think would be good because it would bring a lot of kind of life to the city.
Mm.
I think having a baseball stadium downtown is a lot different from having like an NFL stadium downtown because, well, NFL stadiums are only used 8-10 times a year, whereas baseball stadiums are going to be used 82 plus times a year. So almost one out every 3 or 4 days, there's going to be a
Mm.
baseball game at the stadium. So I think it makes sense there, but I think it's also kind of sad because I think Kauffman Stadium is such a nice
Mm.
stadium, and it's one of the oldest stadiums left, and one of the few kind of mid-century modern stadiums that has lasted. So it's a little bit of a, I'd say, bittersweet at best.
Well, I mean, nothing's finalized yet, so
Mhm.
there's doesn't mean that this is for sure happening, but they've signaled that that's the intent, at least anyway. They still did not name a site, so there's still, you know, an absurd amount of work left to be done to make that actually happen in the time frame they have, which is still 9 years away from when they would open. So, 'cause I think the contract runs through 2030 or 2031. So, um, there's still quite a bit of time left to figure out what's actually going to happen anyway. But but if they want to open a stadium downtown, they're going to have to start construction at least 2 years before it would open, I would think.
Yeah,
So it'd be ready in time. And Kansas City winters can be brutal. Um, I think maybe the most important thing really for the stadium for like attendance reasons is that if it's downtown, the population center has really moved downtown. The density of downtown has grown a lot in the last decade. I think they should have more fans at random afternoon games if it's downtown. I think too.
yeah.
I think
You just leave your office and go, or if you live there, you can. I guess something that people in Kansas City become used to is ample parking and
Mhm.
big parking lots, and that's not going to be available. I guess you
But
might
they're
probably build
but like right
garages.
now, like basically no one could walk to the stadium from where they live. if it's downtown and there's a lot of people that live downtown, you don't actually need as many parking spaces because a lot of the people already live there. They could take transit there or just walk.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe the difference in at least the logic behind where the stadium can be and how much parking is required for the stadium. That may be a detractor for the team because I think they're used to making a lot of money off of parking.
parking. Yeah, I think they get a lot of out of town visitors who drive in
Mhm.
from central Kansas, from Nebraska, from Iowa, from Missouri, other parts of Missouri,
Mhm.
and those people driving in from far away are not going to be able to, you know, do that, and a lot of them probably don't
I
like.
think they still will. I think it's just that the very local people will they won't need to drive, so they won't if you can walk
You
to
know,
the stadium. I mean, I
yeah,
if I had my
yeah,
opportunity, I will gladly move downtown and walk to as many games as I can.
yeah, I don't see. I see it as a. I don't know if I see it as this is a big positive. I don't see it as a big negative either. But yeah, I guess you could also say, well, maybe that would allow the Chiefs to do something more with Arrowhead and
Hmm.
have but I will miss having the stadium there.
True. That is for sure. I mean, that's the only stadium I've known,
Yeah, it's
here
been there.
because it was
It's
constructed
been
before either of us were born. So,
mhm. And it's
um, yeah,
50 years old now. It'll be almost 60 years old by the time the new stadium gets there. So that's one of those things where like that's a pretty historic. Uh,
it ends up being like the fifth oldest stadium, fourth oldest, something like that
yeah, I
in
think so. There's
baseball.
Wrigley and um, Fenway are the
Mhm.
oldest, and then I think
I think the Dodgers stadium was built like maybe
Dodgers
a
and
decade.
Anaheim are about the same age
Hmm.
as uh, Kaufman. So I think maybe it's fourth or fifth, depending
Yeah.
on I don't know with so it's about that old. And Arrowhead is like that too. It's one of the oldest
Mhm.
NFL stadiums, maybe the third oldest
And some
after.
teams have had multiple stadiums since
Yeah,
Coffin was constructed, like um, Atlanta, right? They had a new
yeah,
stadium in '94. Then they've
yeah.
already
For
torn
the
that down
'96
in
Olympics, yeah,
yeah
yeah.
'96, I guess. Yeah, and that's already been torn down, and they have a new stadium
Mhm.
now. So they're on their third stadium since Coffin was
Yeah.
constructed.
Well, I guess you could say that probably is like maybe the same for about the same for like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati because
Hmm.
they built like in the early '70s about the same time as um, they built Riverfront and you know uh, River stadiums, all those in those kind of bowl stadiums, Old Bush Stadium, the cookie
Yeah,
cutter bowl stadiums. But
right.
it's I don't know it's yeah I don't like just tearing buildings down. And so
I understand. Yeah,
but
I
that's the
think it
way
will
it's.
be good in the long run, but it will be sad to see it go though. I think
One thing I would also hope is that they wouldn't make it a smaller stadium because that seems to be the way things are going now. They're building fewer and fewer seats,
Hmm.
and I I, I would like a
Oh,
larger.
you're talking about the stands. I thought maybe you were going to say about the if they're going to make the park physically smaller so they can
Oh,
hit more home runs,
more home runs.
which maybe they will. I mean, you think
Yeah.
they'll try to maintain the dimensions of the park? Because they haven't
Um,
really said anything about this yet, as far as I know.
yeah, I don't know. I like the dimension. I do like the dimensions of this current stadium.
Yeah,
It was traditionally, well, the size of the lot is what dictated how big the stadium
right.
was, and um, it's that's not really now. It's just kind of let's design it to be quirky and interesting rather than well, we're doing what's necessary. Like Fenway Park wasn't, they didn't build the Green Monster because it's a fun little thing to have. It's because well, the street's right here and we can't do anything about it, and
Right.
let's build the wall higher so we don't have home runs all the time.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, let's build a choo-choo train in the center field and have a little hill here for no reason, like in Houston that
They finally got rid of the hill,
yeah,
but still. Well, the Cleveland Guardians, which is still hard to say, it just seems weird. Their park was built in the style of the Fenway as if they were trying to fit it into something, but they didn't. But so it looks strange, like the dimensions of the outfield are odd, but it's for no actual reason.
Yeah.
It's not because the the size of the lot or the shape of the lot. It's just they did it just to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't be doing that here. We'll see. I would guess they would try to maintain the field size and hopefully the attendance levels hopefully will be the capacity should be similar. I
I
would
hope.
hope.
Yeah, they keep shrinking capacities all over. I don't really like that. I think it. I think it's. I guess they don't want empty seats a lot, but I think it's also they want to charge people more for what they have. But I think if you want people to go to the games, make it bigger and um
Yeah.
like especially if you think the team's going to make the playoffs, having a bigger stadium is an advantage, and you make more money because there are more seats,
Right.
more people buying hot dogs, more people buying things to eat. And I think also maybe I think just creating artificial scarcity. I it, it's not my like I do kind of like when Dallas built their new stadium for football, they made it really big,
Right.
and whereas like Arrowhead and things like this, it's the number of seats is being reduced with each successive renovation. It used to hold 78,000, now it holds only like 72,000, and part of that's because we're getting fatter and we need more room, but also because we're building more luxury seats and things like that. Whereas,
When the
I like,
concourses had to be wider and stuff like that. I mean, some
yeah,
of that was, so they could sell more stuff. They needed more room. They ended up taking some seats, so they could sell more things, more beer, more food.
yes,
Yeah.
bringing up beer, yeah.
Yeah. What let's see what's up next. What's on our list next?
We want to talk about the NFL next week.
Yeah, let's
Speaking of Arrowhead,
go through our picks, I guess, right?
our picks, yeah. We have some Thanksgiving Day games coming up. Do you have anything to say about Thanksgiving?
Oh, that's right. I found a couple of trivia questions for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Let's see if you're the Chiefs do not play on Thanksgiving, but they have played on Thanksgiving in the past. What do you think their record is on Thanksgiving Day?
I remember they hosted a Thanksgiving night game against Denver maybe one time, and recently, like when they first started adding the third Thanksgiving game, I think they hosted one against Denver. I think they won that one.
It looks like
I remember
the
when
last time they played was 2006. The last time they had a Thursday night game.
was it against Denver?
It was against Denver. Here, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
They won.
they did win
I,
that one.
I
Do you remember
remember
what the score was? Let's see how much you remember here, Mike.
28-17. I don't know.
1910.
19-10.
No,
Yeah.
that was the debut of Thursday Night Football, the show Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I knew that was the first
Oh.
Thursday night besides the Detroit Dallas they had for a while. I think in the old AFL days, the Chiefs hosted some Thanksgiving night. I remember only one other Thursday night game or Thursday day game. They played Dallas like in the 90s, I think, on Thanksgiving, like the Steve Bono era or something like that. Maybe I think they lost that game. It was fairly close, but they lost. What year was that? You had that in front of you.
You thought was it Chiefs against
Chiefs Dallas.
Dallas? Chiefs played. Well, they played in 2 years in a row, 95, 96. Once against Dallas. Next year against Detroit.
Oh, okay.
They did lose to Dallas 24-12. Thanksgiving 95. They beat the Lions 28-24, 96.
So I would guess maybe the Chiefs have played 7 or 8 times on Thanksgiving total. And that's it. I don't know, about 500. I don't know.
You're very close. They have played a total of 10 games Thanksgiving Day, and they are 500 exactly, 5-5.
Okay, 5-5. Okay.
And then the second question here is: there's exactly one team that has never played on Thanksgiving Day. Who is that team?
Ooh, it's one of those more recent teams, I would guess. I'm inclined to say Houston, but you might think, oh, maybe they'll play Dallas on Thanksgiving. It might be a big Texas game or something. I don't know if anybody wants to see Jacksonville on Thanksgiving. So it's going to be like either Jacksonville, Carolina, or Houston probably. And I guess Houston's the most newest teams. Let's just say Houston.
Well, if you said Jacksonville, Houston, or Carolina, they have played, the three of those teams together have played 3 times on Thanksgiving. One of them has played 0 though. So you did pick 3 of the fewest appearing on Thursday night game, Thanksgiving Day games. There were 2 other teams that have appeared once or never.
2 others have appeared once or never.
Yes. So Tampa has only appeared once.
The Ravens, maybe.
And the Bengals have only appeared once.
Oh, the Bengals. That's interesting. Okay. I guess an AFC team, it's not as difficult because it's always been Dallas and Denver. So it's mostly going to be NFC teams playing on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, the Ravens have appeared twice, but the team that has not appeared at all is, as you mentioned, Jacksonville.
Is Jacksonville?
Yeah. Only active franchise to have never played on Thanksgiving. Does that mean that there's a Thanksgiving like London game coming up?
That would be interesting. It would go opposite the parade or something. They would have a 9:30 a.m. I think that would be a great game. But maybe you think, oh, you want Thanksgiving in America for the players or something.
Right. And Thanksgiving in London doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Although you would say, well, the players don't get to do much on Thanksgiving Day anyway, because But maybe you think, oh, the day after you'll have a long weekend and stuff.
But that would be like the U.S. sharing a holiday with England that they don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. So be
the opposite of pilgrims. Yeah.
Yeah. But which team has played the most games on Thanksgiving?
Well, I guess it's probably Detroit.
It's one of 2, right?
Yeah. Detroit's been a around longer than Dallas, so I guess it's probably gonna be Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Detroit by quite a bit. 82 games they played on Thanksgiving Day, apparently. Yeah.
Do you think Detroit should keep its things? Is it a team, because it's been a losing team for the last 60 years, let's say. Do you think do you think they should keep their Thanksgiving Day tradition, or should it go to another team, or should it rotate? I'm not even going to discuss Dallas.
I think they seem like they have the tradition of playing on Thanksgiving, so it seems like it would be hard to take it away from them. But I think that may be part of why they added a 3rd Thanksgiving Day game, was maybe because the product is already diluted by having Detroit have one of the games. But yeah, I mean, Dallas has always been a draw. That's a big deal for them, it seems like, too. So they've got one that people, or America's team, everybody loves.
Yeah, Dallas has a lot of clout. But you might say, well, why?
A tradition, and then they added the 3rd one, I guess, right, just to make sure.
Yeah, you might say, why does the NFC get to have 2, and the AFC none? And this year it's going to be 3 games, and they're all going to be at NFC stadiums. They're going to be, because Minnesota is going to get its own Thanksgiving Day game against which is the only game it seems like it's going to be competitive, at least according to the spread. New England at Minnesota. Do you we have 2 games are we have the Giants at Dallas. Who's playing Detroit this year?
Bills at Lions is the early game.
The Bills are sticking around 2 weeks in a row in Detroit.
That's right. Yeah. They didn't have to go back to Buffalo for like 3 days.
I don't know why they would have stayed.
Pats at Vikings is the.
Did you bet any of those games?
I did not pick any of these games. Did you pick on any of
No,
those?
I think, yeah, I don't, I didn't pick any of them. I'm inclined to think the most likely team to cover the big spread is Dallas, because that maybe unless the Giants turn it around and say it don't look
Mm.
very good. And
The
I could,
Cowboys could have a little bit of a letdown from
that's
their last
true.
game, but it's
But they
also
always,
Thursday and the Thursday games. The Thursday games sometimes are
yeah, but they always play on
maybe harder to
Thanksgiving and they're
predict.
used to that. I think they're unlike other teams. I could see Detroit keeping it a little closer, but and I have no idea
That
why.
game, I mean, all of those games could get out of hand
Yeah,
relatively easily.
I could see New England getting trounced, or I could see it being a close game. New England's, are they favored? They're only, it's only
Minnesota's favored by two and a
two and a
half.
half. Yeah, I still think New England's a better team with Zappy, but um, yeah, I wouldn't. I just wanted to stay away from those games. Um, Another game I wanted to stay away from was the Chiefs
Big
game.
spread in that one.
Big spread, 14 and a half against, we don't know what quarterback they're going to have for the Rams. They might be one of three. It might be Stafford if he's not concussed. It might be Wolford if his neck is okay, and it might be Bryce Perkins, the relatively unknown quarterback. Do you think the Chiefs? Did you bet? Do you think the Chiefs will cover, or did you? What? Where are you leaning on that one?
I think they don't necessarily cover all that many games spread. They do sometimes. I think they're about 50-50, I think, on the season for covering. This is a big one though. I think they're gonna win, but I don't think they'll cover the spread, is my prediction. But I'm not betting on this one, so I don't trust it enough to actually make a bet on this one. How about you?
Yeah, if I had to pick, I would say they would cover, but
Really?
it's a lot of points. I don't see. I guess I just don't see the Rams scoring very many points.
Yeah.
But maybe if Stafford plays, they're a little bit better. But they don't have Cooper Cup. They don't seem like they
Right.
don't have any running. They don't have any running backs anymore. They've Cam Akers
Mhm.
has gone. Daryl Henderson now's gone. I just don't know who's going to play for the Rams. They've been so banged up, and they just mortgaged their entire future on the Super Bowl last year, and they're so lucky they won the Super Bowl because I think if
Mhm.
didn't make it, I think maybe Sean McVay would be almost out of a job given how bad they've been this year. So yeah, I would say I lean Kansas City in the spread, but it's too much for me to want to go one way or the other. And it's
Yeah.
also and if I thought it was too many points, I would say maybe the Rams would cover, but I'm not sure the Rams would cover either. So that's why I just wanted to clear that. Instead, I bet on some uh, other games. You want to
Any
talk
other
about our?
lopsided spreads that you are purposely staying away from them, like Dolphins Texans?
Yeah, I think in some ways I think the Dolphins might cover, but I still don't think the Dolphins are that good. I don't know why. I just don't. Maybe it's because I don't think of much of Tua. But yeah, I'm staying away from that one, and I'm staying away from. I guess it's not as big a spread, but the Eagles home against the Packers, favored by
Mm.
7. The big spreads, maybe the 49ers over the Saints, I think could cover, but that's the one I would do the most. But most of the other ones that I bet on were actually pretty close spreads this week.
Yeah.
How about
That's
you?
what's I'm gonna go to one of the relatively larger spreads, but not the biggest spreads, at least anyway.
Okay, what's that one?
Yeah, so my first pick up, I'm gonna go with San Francisco. Yeah, -9 at home against the Saints. So I think that yeah, San Francisco I think they're probably on a roll right now, and I don't think the Saints are going to put up much of a fight. Is my guess. So I think the San Francisco covers on that one.
Yeah, that's the way I would lean too. I think both running and passing are clicking for the 49ers. I think they have a pretty good defense, especially against teams that don't have great quarterbacks. They have a pretty good defense. And it's hard to say who New Orleans' quarterback is right now, if it's Winston or if it's Andy Dalton. And yeah, I could see that game getting out of hand. But also I could see, well, maybe San Francisco is not, I don't know, they really rolled against the Cardinals. But you know, maybe their offense isn't that high powered. Maybe maybe they just win 24-17 or something like that, even. Like maybe be ahead 24-10 and then a late touchdown would cover. But I still, if I had to pick one side, I would take San Francisco.
What's your first pick?
My first pick is kind of going back to where you were, because I think the Titans are undervalued. The Titans were 3-point underdogs at Green Bay. They are also underdogs at home against Cincinnati this week, -1.5. I think the Bengals are good, but I think the Titans are just as good or better. And it's at Nashville. The Titans are coming off almost, a long week. They played on Thursday, so they've got a 10-day mini bye going. The Bengals had a tough division game. I think the I think the Bengals could win, but I like the Titans more likely to win. And getting 1.5, it's a little better than a coin flip. It's a little better than pick'em. So I think
When we
I
think
like the value.
Jamar Chase is still out,
I think Chase is still probably going to be out. He's questionable, but if he's
he
back,
could be back. Then
he's probably not going to
he's
be 100%.
he's like he hasn't played since week 7, I think is what.
Yeah,
So it's
and I think
by week
Tannehill is getting into a little bit of a groove now that he's back. And so, yeah, I like the Titans at +1.5. I don't know if they will win, but I think it's a good chance that they will.
that they lose by only one or
Tie or
tie.
Yeah,
Yes, the dreaded
it's like
tie.
it's a little like the roulette odds where you think if it's kind of like I'm getting not only red but also the 0 and 00.
Yeah.
So you might as well bet on that side rather than
Sure.
yeah. And I think the Titans are undervalued in general by bettors. So they aren't flashy, they aren't fun, and the Bengals are. So let's go Titans there.
All right. See, my second pick, I went to the Ravens Jaguars game. Baltimore is favored by 4 points, and I think they're gonna cover the spread on that one too. Yeah, it seems like Baltimore's not been playing great, but they've been winning for the most part. They won a pretty close game late this most recent week. But I think
Carolina, yeah.
they've been seemingly performing better on the road than they have at home. And this is another road game, so yeah, I think they'll end up covering that one. Yeah,
And I think their defense is getting better. And if they hold the Jaguars to, I think they can score enough. So I would, yeah, they're favored by 4 on the road. You never know what's going to happen. I don't think the Jaguars are that bad, but it's one of those. Yeah, it's if I had to guess a side, maybe I would do Baltimore. I like picking home underdogs, but I don't know how much I like the Jags. So the Ravens have only lost 1 game on the road this year, and
that was against the Bills.
I think that's a decent. I think that's a decent spot. The Ravens.
Yeah. How about your second pick?
I'm staying in the Southeast, and this is the Broncos at Panthers. The Broncos are actually favored by 2.5 in Carolina. I'm not going to bet on the spread. However, I'm looking at the over/under line, which right now is a pathetic 35, and I still think that they're gonna be under that. I think the Panthers, we don't know who their quarterback's gonna be. It might be Sam Darnold. It might be PJ Walker. It might be Baker Mayfield. So the Panthers only managed 13 against The Ravens, maybe they'll get 13 against Broncos, but if they get, I don't
I think
think the Broncos.
only had 3, right? In the
Oh yeah, they only
was it
managed 3 against the Ravens. So
yeah.
maybe even if they get 13 against the Broncos would have to score 23 points
Mm.
to.
But the Bills' offense is typically pretty decent. They only allowed 13 points, also, right? So it's not
Yeah,
like that game got out of hand
yeah, the Panthers have a pretty good
one
defense.
side.
Yeah, I could see it as a 14-10 game, something like that. And so yeah, the
Right, and that would
Broncos
be
offense is,
well under the 35, right?
yeah, Broncos I think are 32nd in scoring, and the Panthers aren't much better. So I think, yeah, I think that could be under, even though it's so low. They want you to take the over, but I'm gonna take the under. Just I think I have, yeah, I think, yeah, I just don't think, I don't see where the points are coming from in that game. So given that it's like, if this had the line had been put up a year ago, you think, okay, the Broncos have Russell Wilson, they have some good receivers, the Panthers have kind of an exciting offense with Matt Rule and as the court, but yeah, no,
Mhm.
this is going to be an ugly game, I think, and so I'm rooting for ugliness, and I'm rooting for the under here.
What is pretty amazing is Denver is the worst team in the league at covering the over. They've only hit the over once this season in 10 games. And Carolina is in the bottom third also at the so that seems like a pretty safe bet, actually, at a comically low 35 total points is.
Yeah, let's hope the under comes through for me then.
Yeah.
How about your third bet?
My third bet, I think that the Cardinals are probably about done, is my expectation. I guess that a couple of their coaches got fired after some incident. They have not explained what the incident was, but
Yeah,
on the way back from the Mexico City game, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of them. Chargers are favored at Arizona by 4.5, and I think the Chargers are going to try to bounce back from the Chiefs' loss. And it seems like to me Arizona's in a bit of trouble. I think for their season they may be writing off the rest of the year, and there may
yeah,
be firings to come, but maybe even before the year's over. I expect the Chargers to win that game pretty handily.
yeah. The Chargers are fighting for a playoff spot. They've lost the last 2 weeks, but they've lost to two pretty good teams in pretty
Mhm.
close games, the 49ers and the Chiefs. So I think, yeah, I think this is a game where it seems like maybe we don't know who the quarterback's going to be for the Cardinals. Maybe it'll be McCoy again. It could be a injured Kyler Murray returning. Either way, I think the Chargers are a better team, and I think, like you said, I think this is about the time where the Cardinals are kind of, they always do poorly at the end of the season anyway, especially under Kingsbury.
Mm.
Um, I think this might be the time where they just kind of roll over, and especially given that the last game against the 49ers, they got blown out. So I would, this is one of the games I was looking at too when I was looking at the Chargers. So I think that's a solid bet, which maybe is the kiss of death. But
Now I'm worried, and I think I should flip it. No, not going to. But what's your third pick?
my third pick, I am sticking, or I'm sticking on the Steelers game, but I'm betting against the Steelers this week. Steelers are on the road at the Colts on Monday night. The Colts are
Mhm.
favored by 2.5 points. I think the Colts are still, they played well in their 2 games under Jeff Saturday. I don't know if this is Jeff Saturday or if this is just having Matt Ryan back as quarterback and having Jonathan Taylor back as non-injured running back. But I think the Colts are a pretty decent team,
Mhm.
and the Steelers are rebuilding this year, and the Colts are only favored by 2.5, which would mean kind of they'd be seen as even on a neutral field. I think the Colts will win this game by more than a field goal, and so yeah, I like the Colts here.
Oh, that's actually the Monday night game too, isn't
The
it?
Monday night game, yeah.
Well, yeah, at Indy. also. So it's
Yeah. And the Colts are my daughter Marie's favorite team because she identifies so much with horses, so she likes the Colts
oh,
the best. She also likes
nice.
the Broncos, but she likes the Colts.
Just all of the horse-based teams.
Yes. The
So
Phillies are her
if
favorite baseball
if
team.
she's wearing a, do you allow her to wear Broncos gear, or have you like
She doesn't have any
pushed
Broncos.
away from that?
I might get her a Colts shirt for Christmas.
Yes, but no Broncos stuff.
No, probably not any Broncos.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't discourage her from rooting for whatever team she wanted.
Yeah.
So her baseball team right now is the Phillies.
Yeah.
I told her they don't really have any horse pictures or anything like that they have, but
Yeah.
those are her teams.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm picking the Colts for Marie.
All right. There you go. That's pretty much guarantees it's going to be a win then, I think. Right?
And they used to be in Baltimore, and she lives in Maryland, so
Yeah. There you go.
yeah. All right. Do we have any other games you want to talk about?
Um, I think maybe one of the more interesting games from the week, maybe the Sunday night game though, the Packers at Eagles. I think may have some pretty big implications for possibilities for the season. Then that
Well, if the Eagles or the
could
Packers
be,
want to keep their playoff hopes alive, basically that's
yeah,
what we need to be talking about. So they need to beat the Eagles.
it could be the end for the Packers. It could signal the end for the Phillies for Philly if they don't play well.
Yeah,
I
it
think
could.
they could lose a bunch of games if they're not careful. That's what it really comes down to.
I think so too, but I think in some ways it seems like the Packers are in worse shape. Like even in work, like
Oh, for
relatively, even
sure.
like the Eagles are maybe were in danger of losing a few in a row, but I think the Packers have already lost several. They've lost like
Yeah,
6 out of the last 7 or something, and they had that little bounce back against the Cowboys, but on the road in Philly, I don't know. I guess unless somehow Rodgers has a kind of like a rebirth, I don't see
yeah,
it happening. I would say Philly is going to win, but I would kind of like to see some of the chaos if the Packers would win. I don't like Rodgers, especially given his kind of COVID denialism and overall douchiness lately, but
lately.
more so lately, I think, because he doesn't seem to like none of his teammates like him anymore, and he's just sort of
Yeah,
he doesn't do that. But I would kind of like to see Philadelphia being knocked down a peg too, because I don't think they're as good as the record indicates. So
yeah,
I think that's an interesting game.
yeah. Well, I guess we didn't actually say what our where the current standings are on our betting competition.
Oh yeah, you retook the lead, I believe, with your two
Yeah,
and one. I was 1-2. You were 2-1.
yeah. So yeah, overall you're now 15 and 18, minus 300 on the season.
Mm-hmm.
Or how does that work out? 300 divided by 11, $27,
I'm $27.
somewhere in there. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm 15, 17 and 1. This is the one push from a couple weeks ago. Minus $200 or minus
about
eight,
$18.
17, $18 a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. The slow march towards mediocrity, Mike.
Yeah, we're both getting there, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if both of us were above 500 at the season's end. I think we
Yeah.
have, I don't know, I think we are at least kind of approaching the mean.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was we hit like a low point. What was that about week 6 or so? I was 6 and 12 at week 6.
Yeah,
You were 7 and 11 then.
and we're both better than that now. So
Well, I was only 2 and 7 after week 3.
we
Yeah, there was some pretty
had a rough start, and then we had a couple of bad weeks.
4 and 11 through week 5.
You've really come along. Your system is really starting to pay off.
Has improved. Yes.
The patented
Yeah.
scaff system.
Yes.
I guess
No
we'll see
doubt.
what next week holds. Are we ready to sign off?
I think so.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who wins our bets next week. But we have a fun week this week. I think all 32 teams are playing for the first time in a while, so no buys. We have 3 Thanksgiving games, a full slate of Sunday games. Do we have a Friday night game this week? Is there a Thanksgiving day after Thanksgiving?
There's no Black
game?
Friday game.
No Black Friday game? That would have been fun too.
Yeah,
But anyway, we'll have a lot of the other games to play. So
that's a commerce day, Mike. We can't have football and sales on the same day. That's too much to ask.
yeah. Well, maybe one of these years we'll have a Black Friday game.
Yeah.
But this year at least we have 3 Thanksgiving games to look forward to, many Sunday games, a Monday night game, and wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. It's not one of my favorite holidays, but it's a lot of people's favorite holiday. I'm indifferent to Thanksgiving. It comes at a weird time. It's only a month before Christmas. Most people eat the same food that they have on Christmas. Most people see the same people they're going to see on Christmas.
Yeah.
And it just seems like, as an academic, it comes at the wrong time of the semester. And as a student, it's like towards the end, you really have a lot of work to do, another few days, and like it's just hectic, and you got to see everybody. So I'm a little bit of a Scrooge for Thanksgiving. But anyway, even if you aren't, I still wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And I wish you good luck in your betting if you make bets, or if your rooting interests. And we'll see you again next week. As always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our many available delivery options, whether it's on your podcasts that you like or on our YouTube channel. And until next week, good day.